To call the Planning and Works Committee meeting to order, please, and could we have a motion to go back into open session? Councillor Kiefer, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Let's carry any declarations, pecuniary interest. Okay, seeing none. The first delegation on your consolidated agenda, and we welcome Dr. Paul Salvini, the CEO of the Accelerator Centre, for an update. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here today to provide an update on the Accelerator Centre. My name's Paul Salvini and served as CEO now for 5 years at the Accelerator Centre. As you know, we're a not-for-profit organization. Our mission is to build and grow strong technology companies in Waterloo region. And we typically work with founders who don't have a background in business, but they have a strong background in technology. And our job is to make sure they get the business side right. The region of Waterloo has supported the Accelerator Centre from the very beginning through its investment in developing the Research and Technology Park approximately 15 years ago, and that really brings us to where we are today. And the region's a founding member of the Accelerator Centre, has a seat on the board, and that seat is served by Rod Regier, and we're obviously very lucky to have him on our board. Thanks to that support, the Accelerator Centre has grown to be one of the most successful accelerators in the world. And competition in this space is very fierce and certainly growing. It's every country and every major city these days is fighting to try to get a foothold in the knowledge economy and create those kinds of jobs of the future. In 2018, we were named Canada's Accelerator of the Year by the for FinTech and Artificial Intelligence by the Digital Finance Institute. And globally, we're ranked the number 4 accelerator in the world, and that's by UBI International. It's an organization that ranks about the 1,400 incubators and accelerators globally, and being in the global top 5 is certainly a big deal when you consider that some of those are private incubators as well as public incubators. And what I truly hope is some foreshadowing of good news to come for our region. We've been invited to Qatar next month, which is the host city for UBI International, to lead a global best practice session on creating successful innovation ecosystems to drive economic value. And so we hope that's good news in terms of where we're going to land on the rankings this year. Graduates of the Accelerator Centre are now some of the most exciting tech companies in Waterloo region. Companies like Axonify and Myovision and ClearPath Robotics, IntelliJoint, Magnet Forensics, SimWave, TextNow. In fact, we have about 64 graduates of the full program. When you walk into the Accelerator Centre, you see our wall is growing. We had to expand it recently to make room for new companies. That wall has a collective corporate value of about $3.5 billion, so not insignificant in terms of its value. Today, we operate 3 physical facilities. 2 of them are in the Research and Technology Park, and 1 is the Hardware Innovation Lab in downtown Kitchener. The model that we have for incubating businesses is very unique. It's one that we're proud of. We work with companies for a long time, 2 to 3 years, and they work through 4 different phases of our program. Much like school, we have a curriculum that we teach to the founders, and it covers every part of building and growing a business. But we also have an accountability model, and that makes sure that companies stay on track to grow at the pace that we would like them to, and obviously our founders as well. The motto at the Accelerator Centre is built to scale. It means if you're coming to the Accelerator Centre, it's because you're not building a lifestyle business, you really are building a company with the intention to have it win globally. And we are trying to build those kinds of companies that are going to help succeed globally for our region. We have the luxury to be an extremely selective incubator. For every company that we bring into our main program, we review and turn away approximately 50 companies. And those lucky companies that do make it into our program are pretty much guaranteed a heightened level of success and a shorter timeline to get there. Sometimes we're asked about, how do you attribute the success of companies to programs like yours? And it was interesting that the global UBI study had some great statistics. They said the 5-year average for startup companies succeeding and growing is about 44%. So 44% of companies are still successful 5 years after startup. The average for companies in an incubation program is 59% globally. The Accelerator Center has the highest average in the world, with 96% of our companies successful 5 years after graduation. So it's something we're very, very proud of. We provide mentorship in 10 areas of business through our 7 mentors and team of over a dozen specialists. And it's really the dream team, a team that any entrepreneurial company would love to have. People who have not only done it before in terms of growing strong tech businesses, but people who are able to teach and coach and nurture talent and bring the right people into those companies, people who are entrepreneurial leaders themselves. We operate a program called AC Jumpstart, and for those companies, we're able to provide a $30,000 grant, and that's seed capital thanks to a special program from FedDev. We're also an accredited incubator in the Government of Canada's Startup Visa program. And that program allows us to attract businesses and entrepreneurs from other countries to come to Canada with their startups and build their businesses here. And these entrepreneurs are given a short-term work permit under the International Mobility Program, and they can grow their companies in Canada while they're applying for and waiting for permanent residency status. And we've attracted a number of companies to Waterloo Region through this initiative and hope to continue that into the future. The impact of the Accelerator Centre has been substantial. As I mentioned earlier, the 64 companies that have graduated have created over $3.5 billion in corporate value, but they've also created 3,600 jobs locally, high-tech jobs, jobs that will serve us very, very well going into the future. Now, the work that we've done has been done with a very modest budget, includes about $600,000 a year from the province of Ontario. So we think that's a pretty impressive return. It works out to approximately $1,500 per full-time job. And the rule of thumb in terms of hiring technical talent in our industry is when you acquire a company for its talent, you pay about $1 million an engineer. So global tech companies are willing to buy a 20 engineering person company for $20 million. So that's the value of one person. So you can imagine that to be able to build that many jobs and retain that much talent in our community is fantastic, because a company would normally pay more than that just for a single engineer. 89% of our graduate companies have remained in Waterloo Region. That's something we're often asked. Do we just create these companies and then do they sell out? Do they leave the region? And in fact, most stay. All have remained in Canada, and most have remained in Canada. I think one of the most rewarding things for me is when you drive around the region and you see some of the headquarters of these companies and the growth and success that they've had. It makes us incredibly proud to know that we've played a role in that growth and in that success. This year's CBRE outlook in terms of growth within the region cites our tech sector as one of the driving forces behind high demand in office space in our cities, and talks about the roles of incubators within this region as being a driving force for that growth. So as a council, you've done very well with that initial investment. As we look to the future, we're enormously excited with what we see. The quality of our companies continues to increase, and thanks to not only our growing global reputation, but also the growing global reputation of our academic partners, this region is continuing to attract a level of talent that would make any city in the world very envious. And so I wanted to talk about a few trends that are worth noting in our world. One is that of themed incubation. When we started out, we were a general purpose incubator. We would work with absolutely any tech company, and we had the same program for everyone. And in the past few years, we've built specialized programs for 2 areas, hardware and clean tech. And that's because those companies have specialized needs, not only in terms of their facilities, but in terms of the mentoring and support that we require and the financing that we connect them to. So success in these fields is only going to happen if we continue to build out new themes, and we see some opportunities to do that within our region. In our hardware innovation lab, for example, in downtown Kitchener, we're allowing companies to work with robots, advanced sensors, quantum technologies, and even some medical technologies. And the clean tech and sustainable technology incubator that this council, again, was part of supporting is in the Net Positive Evolve building in the Research Park, and that's been attracting worldwide attention. I just had another delegation of individuals from both the provincial and federal government walking through that facility yesterday and learning about the story. We also should have some exciting news to announce later this week about a national award related to that facility that I think will make this council very proud. Another big trend for us involves retaining talent, and we talk a lot about the incredible talent coming to this region, and obviously there's a lot of focus on how we can take full advantage of that benefit that we have. How do we make sure people stay within this region to build companies or work for companies once they graduate? And in order to do that, we have to make sure that the opportunities that we're creating here in terms of the type of companies and the work that they're doing is just as exciting as any other company in the world. And in fact, you see that. When I have my students returning from their co-op terms, they've come back from Tesla and Google and Amazon and Microsoft and Apple. They've been at all the top innovation companies in the world, and they have access to careers at all of those top companies. And so we want to make sure that the types of companies we're building here are just as exciting, just as ambitious, just as purpose-driven as those companies are, so that we can retain even more of the incredible talent that we have here. And that's what I'd like to suggest we have an opportunity to continue to do. Next year, we'll be entering the third phase of the evolution of the Accelerator Centre. It's one that we hope to grow our impact and double down on what we know to be a winning program. We're very excited. I say there really has not been a better time in terms of the quality of innovation that's occurring in our region and the sophistication, I think, of the founders that we're seeing. In our vision, as we move into the next year, we're going to expand that programming, and we're looking at new themes like medical technologies, applied artificial intelligence, and data science, and a few others as well that we think have great promise, such as quantum and cybersecurity. The province is currently determining its priorities with respect to funding of Ontario's incubators and accelerators, and while we hope they will also see the obvious benefits of continuing the modest investment that they're making here in Waterloo Region, I want to be sure that this council is aware of the work that we've been doing. And while I do hope that as a result of the province's study, they will continue with their investment, I am concerned that the uncertainty around that funding might require us to slow down, and in my mind, that would truly be a shame. So I'm not here with a specific financial ask, but I do want us to think about beginning that conversation of how we can create a made-in-Waterloo solution to invest in our own region's growth and success so that we can make sure that our growth isn't slowed down, independent of the decisions being made at the provincial level. It was that initial support that this council made that got us to where we are today, and I hope it'll be that continued support that will allow us to continue to grow into the future. I have no doubts the financial return for this region will be there, as they have been in the past, and I look forward to continuing that discussion with you in the weeks and months ahead. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul, for that update. It's certainly great to see the tremendous success that the Accelerator has. Is there any questions to Dr. Salvini in this regard? Okay, I see none, Paul, but I just wanted to go down memory lane a little bit, if I could, because I'm not sure all members of council fully appreciate that this was the region's project. We built the Accelerator Center. The region built it, and then spun it off to the nonprofit. It was all part of a Superfund grant from the federal and provincial government, along with the city of Waterloo, and the city of Cambridge, actually. Not for the Accelerator Center. There were 7 projects. The School of Architecture was one, the Accelerator Center, the Research and Technology Park itself, the servicing, the restoration of Columbia Lake, the extension of Westmount Road, the reconstruction of Columbia Street, and the purchase of the rail line from downtown Kitchener to Elmira. Those are all 7 of the projects that were funded in the Superfund project at that time. And the Accelerator Center was a vision of Jerry Thompson as well, and he's very appropriately remembered in the facility with a room in his honor named after him, because it was really part of his vision as well for the LRT as well as for the Accelerator Center. So it's really great seeing how those decisions and investments that we made quite a number of years ago have really borne fruit, and the number of spin-offs that have come out of the Accelerator Center. I've been fortunate to be at some of the graduation ceremonies, and it's always interesting to hear the stories of the entrepreneurs who graduate from the program, where they came from, how they came together, the idea that they spawned, and how they moved it forward into some kind of a commercial operation through, of course, the mentoring and the support of all the staff and mentors associated with the Accelerator Center. So it's certainly a proud achievement that the region should certainly remember that we were really the impetus behind the beginnings of the Accelerator Center, along with a lot of other people. We provided the funds and some of the direction, and to this day, I believe we have a seat on the board of directors of the Accelerator Center, and we acknowledge the great benefits and the great support that the Accelerator Center has given to our economy here locally, and certainly we hope that it continues in the same way as it has. You may be forewarning us of something to consider in the future, but it is certainly a proud achievement for yourself and for your board, but the region, I think we should be suitably acknowledged as well as you have. Thanks very much, Paul.
Thank you very, very much.
Okay, now we have another delegation listed, but I understand Mr. Weins simply wants to be acknowledged for being here. This has to do with a matter of a couple of properties on Shantz Hill Road that have been, in his estimation, impacted by the construction, the new construction, and he's apparently satisfied to sit down with staff to discuss some of those implications, and hopefully they can be worked out. He just wants it acknowledged and put into the minutes that he attended this meeting today. And we thank Mr. Weins for being here today. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to the consent agenda and ask if there are 4 items on the consent agenda. If there's anything that anybody wished to talk to specifically, Councillor Shantz.
Thank you. Construction of Church Street East. Just wondering, it talks about sidewalks. It doesn't talk about a road crossing at all or a crosswalk. Has that been taken into consideration prior to putting this list together?
Who's taking that? Mr. Bauer.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I caught the question. Could you mind repeating it?
Thank you. The Church Street East reconstruction, there's a number of expropriations listed there, and there is note of a sidewalk on the north side. There was also talk of a crosswalk, a crossing over Church Street at some point, and I just wanted to make sure that wasn't lost in the shuffle because I didn't see that listed in the report at all.
So certainly we'll make a note of that, and I'll confirm that. I wouldn't expect it's affecting the expropriations, but I'll make a note of that for sure.
Probably not, but I wanted to check. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda. Councillor Jaworski, Councillor Shantz, all in favor? That's carried. The regular agenda, the first item is on the Curatorial Center expansion. There's a report there. Helen, were you going to give us a highlight of that report?
The Curatorial Center at the Waterloo Region Museums, there's been a proposal for a while to expand that center in order to accommodate the ever-growing collection, as any normal museum does. Back in 2017, we received a federal grant from the Canadian Cultural Spaces Program, or $1 million for the $11 million expansion project. That funding so far has helped us to come up with a design phase, but we're a new funding opportunity has actually come up from the provincial and the federal governments, and we're looking at that as an opportunity to actually bring in some more funding to ensure that this project can go ahead, because it changes the funding ratio. Currently, we're $1 million in an $11 million project, and this different approach would actually, the regional contribution would look more like a $3 million contribution from the region, the rest being made up by the feds and the province. So what we're recommending is that we put the project on hold. The Canadian Cultural Spaces Fund has said that we can retain the funds that we've already expended and allow that grant to expire, because if we proceed with what we currently have, we actually would have to go to tender, and that would then make us ineligible for the other funding source. So we're proposing that we say thank you very much to Canadian Heritage for the funding we received already, finish the design phase as it's currently standing, and then move forward with an application to the new funding source and hopefully draw down some more funding for that.
Okay, any questions to Helen on the recommendations? So in a nutshell, we had kind of put this project off due to funding, and we'll let this particular grant expire, although we have used some of it up and may use even a little more of it up, but probably not the entire amount, and then apply for a grant that would be significantly more money from federal, provincial sources, and require a much smaller local contribution to the project. So, of course, that's dependent on being successful in the application, so there's some risk involved, but given that we've spent the better part of $1 million, there's not a lot of risk involved in this, and seems like a prudent thing to do. Councillor Foxton, you're going to move it, seconded by Councillor Clark. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. The next item is the King Victoria Transit Hub design update. If anyone has any questions in regard to that, staff can answer it, but basically it's it's the recommended approach for the design process and an amount of money for the schematic design service that we want to undertake forthwith. Moved by Chair Redmond. I came. Did you hear the yes? Oops. Councillor Clark, you're seconding it? All in favor? That's carried. The next report is a project approval for the Bleams Road to Fischer-Hallman Strasburg project to file the EA and the design to approve it. Moved by Councillor Shantz, Councillor Verbanovic, all in favor? And then the final item is the naming of the South Boundary Road in Cambridge North Dumfries for Dr. Shaver, Dr. McQueen Shaver. I don't think that's, well, I won't say. And that has been, I guess, approved by, or supported at least by the City of Cambridge Council. Councillor Jowett, Councillor Kiefer, all in favor? That's carried. Any other matters? Motion to adjourn. Councillor Harris, Councillor Foxton, all in favor? Thank you.